The pygmy boy is the final menace which kills every great society, and his proliferation will be our downfall. I can explain, but first, behold our enemy.
Oh, hey, do you want to hear another absolutely disgusting secret about men that they definitely do not want you to know? And as usual, that's an absolutely foolproof method, so please pay attention and do not tell anybody that I told you guys. And I've actually decided to put on a shirt because it's really funny that I dress like this and give off like tough, like a tough sort of thing going on. And then I cried at Phoebe Bridgers in the shower, and I listened to C Rose and Boy Genius, and the dichotomy is crazy. But I don't even listen to hardcore music that much. Look at this shirt, it's my friend's tattoo brand. Anyway, I'm gonna go. Later.
For this thesis, I will be citing mythologist Joseph Campbell and feminist social critic Camille Paglia. To illustrate the issue at hand, we must first travel back in time into prehistory and up into the rise of Western civilization in order to preliminarily establish the icon of the woman, and in response the symbol of the man, and ultimately, with this bio-mythological relationship in mind, we will be able to identify what role these bipedal, fine-line, tatted, mustachioed vermin play in the decay of a culture, much like bacteria, yeast, mold, subaquatic thermal vent-dwelling protozoa, brain-eating amoeba, or other such mindless, hipster, simple cellular, fungoidal decomposers. Let us begin. Entering the Paleolithic era, quote, the concept of the earth as both bearing and nourishing mother had been extremely prominent in the mythologies both of hunting societies and of planters, said Joseph Campbell. According to the imagery of hunters, it is from her womb that the game animals derive as temporal manifestations for the nourishment of mankind, unquote. Therefore, nature was viewed as the loving Mother Earth who births life, the image of which was forever memorialized in pieces such as the Venus of Willendorf, Austria, 20,000 BC, Seated Woman of Ketelhuk, Turkey, 6,000 BC, and the Minoan snake goddess Crete, 1,600 BC, snakes being a symbol of deep, esoteric, subterranean wisdom. In these icons, we see the woman represented as the corpulent, fertile, wide-hipped mother, the wellspring of all life, again, the heavenly figure who gives birth to all creation. However, birth is its own trauma, a terrifying moment of mortal sublimation when consciousness is wrenched open, form is changed out of alchemical darkness, and blinding light floods in, much like how we describe death. Hence, Campbell said, when the mother image begins to assume definition in the gradual dawn of the infantile consciousness, it is already associated not only with the sense of beatitude, but also with fantasies of danger, separation, and terrible destruction. She is a cannibal. Cannibal ogresses appear in the folklore of peoples high and low throughout the world, and on the mythological level of the archetype, is even magnified into a universal symbol in such cannibal mother goddesses as the Hindu Kali, the black one who is personification of all-consuming time, or in the medieval European figure of the consumer of the wicked dead, the female mouth and belly of hell. Look at this image of Kali. She is seen as a manifestation of Shakti, the feminine principle of divine energy, aka the black yin. Her foot is upon Shiva, the masculine form, aka the white yang. A common story depicts Kali in a state of rage, threatening to destroy the universe. Shiva, in an act of devotion and to pacify her, lays down before her and is stepped on. This symbolizes that even the powerful Shiva cannot stop Kali's destructive force, but he can offer himself to be stepped on, thus bringing her back to her original nature, that of loving mother. Now that we have the complex, perhaps even contradictory understanding of the ancient perspective of femininity, we can discuss the masculine mythological response. From this perspective of matriarchal domination came the reactionary, male-driven attitude to escape the claustrophobia of the earth womb, and thus the development of culture followed, especially by means of masculine coming-of-age rituals, which are totally absent in modern society, hence much of our repressed psychoses. It is obvious, said Campbell, that the idea of death and rebirth through ritual and with fresh organization of profoundly impressed sign stimuli, is an extremely ancient one in the history of culture, and that everything was done even in the period of the Paleolithic caves to inspire in the youngsters being symbolically killed a reactivation of their childhood fear of the dark. The psychological value of such a shock treatment for the shattering of a no longer wanted personality structure appears to have been methodically utilized for the conversion of babes into men, dependable hunters, and courageous defenders of the tribe. Simply stated, organized culture arose as a masculine effort to evade the domineering reach of Mother Earth, Mother Nature, the acrylic nail grip of the cannibal witch goddess as a whole, This, of course, reached its pinnacle in the West through both the Hebraic and Hellenistic cultures, that is, the Jews and the Greeks. To illustrate, if we extrapolate the small-scale sexual belief frameworks of primitive humans to a more global network indicative of humanity as a whole, we can theorize the following. In the beginning, there was untamed nature, mysterious, frantic, remorseless, capricious, unknowable, and associated with the woman, Gaia, Mother Earth. As humanity developed itself and grew stronger, bolder, more organized, and more independent from the anima, or feminine aspect of nature, from Latin natura, literally meaning birth, the gender roles became more separated and defined in tandem. We grew sober due to the wisdom of our agriculture, the tilling of the soil, figuratively a sort of raping and deflowering of the Earth Mother, and we became proud and self-assured in our teenage awakening. Mysticism was replaced with oral science, soon to be written, thus demystified, and power was allocated to the masculine locus as man usurped his faculty. The idea of supernatural provision was no longer a gamble which required endless female reverence and the occasional rain dance, but a guarantee that only needed the right hoe, seed, technique, and muscle. The power of creation left the prenatal innards of Earth and entered the mind of man. Now that we knew which mushrooms were poisonous, how to raise wheat and kill bears, worship was moved from the Earth goddess, limbic, nether, sensual, to the sky god, cogitation, thought, enlightenment, culminating especially in the advent of the Abrahamic deity of Jehovah, Yahweh, a male divine avatar who lives above as opposed to a female one below, which was a huge departure from the religious norms of global primitive humanity, and which is a concept that we have built the entire Western world out of. In the words of Paglia from her work Sexual Personae, woman was an idol of belly magic. She seemed to swell and give birth by her own law. From the beginning of time, woman has seemed an uncanny being. Man honored but feared her. She was the black maw that had spat him forth and would devour him anew. Men, bonding together, invented culture as a defense against female nature. Sky cult was the most sophisticated step in this process, for its switch of the creative locus from earth to sky is a shift from belly magic to head magic, and from this defense of head magic has come the spectacular glory of male civilization, which has lifted women with it. The very language and logic modern woman uses to assail patriarchal culture were the invention of men. Recall the Minoan snake goddess, and then think what role the woman and snake are said to play in the Old Testament Garden of Eden story. Then let us consider a few of the Greek myths. Hera, the goddess of woman and childbirth, who was jealous that Zeus boned a mortal woman and created Hercules, sent snakes to kill the demigod boy as an infant. This didn't work, and Hercules prevailed and of course became the heroic hunk we are all familiar with. In a similar stroke of fortune, Virgil describes in the Aeneid how the priest of Troy, Laocoon, tried to warn his countrymen not to trust the Greeks and to keep the gates shut, saying, Timeo Dineos et dona ferentes, beware of Greeks bearing gifts. For this transgression, Athena, goddess of wisdom and war, who was in favor of the Greeks, sent 2 snakes to kill the priest and his sons, and of course all the Trojans took this as a sign that he was full of shit and let the Trojan horse in, much to their dismay. Finally, let us look at the great statue of Benvenuto Cellini and consider the myth of Perseus. Here, immortalized in bronze, the hero has defeated Medusa and raises aloft the decapitated head of the defeated snake goddess, who petrifies, that is, turns to stone all the men who dare glimpse upon her. This statue itself is a myth incarnate, representative of separated male culture upon which, as Paglia said, whether we like it or not, Western society was built out of. And this gets me to the point of the pick-me boy. Think, what is the pitiful theme of the Medusa myth? A man gets trapped by the gaze of a woman and is entombed forever in her own image of him. Mythologically, a real man is immune to the stone scolding stare of the matriarchy, and thus, inversely, the modern Gorgon slave is what we colloquially call pick-me, henpecked, or pussy-whipped. These are the men who are desperate for attention in the female ogle, who dig through the dirt like cringing termites to bring up embarrassing gifts for their queen and commit overt perjury against their own convictions, if they even have any, just to get laid. Simply put, they do not have the manly gumption to approach a woman head-on, so they revert to covert subterfuge to make themselves look harmless, just so they can gain trust and get in close enough to make a move. In fact, Medusa, once notoriously beautiful, became the very monster we know of because Poseidon tried to seduce her, failed, then ultimately ravished her despicably in the temple of Athena. Therefore, understand, these men are parasites, monster makers, not gentlemanly, not gentle at all. Actually, they are liabilities. They are the worst tricksters of them all, traitors to fellow men and closeted ally predators of women as well. Counterintuitively, they are the most selfish of them all, willing to do and believe anything just for a morsel of validation and coochie, of course, from the fairer sex. They love their stone confines because they confuse it with being a fine piece of sculpture themselves, but they are wrong. They only humiliate themselves. Every man winces at him, and ironically, every woman can smell it on them too, that smell of treacherous desperation, and they hate that smell because whatever man succumbs to the man-eater desires of a woman surely stands no chance against any rival man worth his salt. I repeat, this man is not trustworthy. This is the kind of rejected hunchback who betrays the 300 and tells the Persians about a secret mountain pass to flank his kinsmen just for the promise of some concubines and gold. This is also the shirtless chap, equally deformed, but of the spirit, who says, oh hey, do you want to hear another absolutely disgusting secret about men that they definitely do not want you to know about? Thus, much like we view these men today, I believe the men of ancient Greece did not view Medusa's prey with any sympathy at all, but with the utmost scorn. I believe they loathed the snake woman's legions of limestone figurines. In conclusion, it should be noted that every Western culture encounters a critical inflection point in which the man must combat the Mother Earth snake goddess cannibal. If he is successful in his trial, that is, if he is manly, high society and prosperity follow, such as in the case of Hercules and Perseus and ancient Greece. However, if a man cannot remain convicted in principle, that is, if he cannot assert himself in a manly way, as in the case of the fall of Troy, the first sin, or Medusa's cuckolded garden gnomes, then what follows is only destruction for all parties involved. I say these things from an academic distance, not personally or with any vitriol, and my ultimate assertion is that manly men exist for the benefit of all people within a culture. For a culture to survive, men must be virtuous. Virtue, from the Latin root vir, meaning man. This does not mean being emotionally unintelligent, apathetic, or distant. That's not bad boy bravado, that's not macho, but what's worse than macho wannabes are manipulative definitely R's, those pernicious playboys who keep a handkerchief in their pocket solely because they're on the hunt for crying girls to comfort. I say this as a warning, for I believe if you look around, you will all see exactly this pitiful shame which I am talking about, those roaming droves of slack-jawed, dull-eyed Peter Pans in tights, uninitiated in the ways of manhood, who as a result regress to a sort of breastfeeding, thumb-sucking, female hyperdependence which masks their chauvinistic marauding. Right, bro, I'm sure you're just reading Sylvia Plath for the fun of it. Is that Simone de Beauvoir in your tote bag too? A nice mustache. Did you see that they were blowing up on Pinterest? Is that why you have one now too? If you don't agree with me, it's too late. I've already depicted myself as Chad Perseus and you as Soy Jack Gorgonslave, but if you do really disagree with me, please leave your thoughts, and consider lastly the words again of Paglia before you go. Western culture from the start has swerved from femaleness. The last Western society to worship female powers was Minoan Crete, and significantly, that fell and did not rise again. Thanks.